Okay, so good evening, Paula, Nicole. Okay, so let's start the other class. I'm gonna leave this class recording so then you can see it. And you can watch it twice in order to understand better the lesson. So, okay, we're gonna continue. I'm gonna send you this PDF, this PPT, right? It's a PowerPoint. As soon as we finished with the lesson, right? So we stop in. Okay. So we stop in punctuation, right? So I'm going to share my screen with you. Oh, I'm trying to. What? Okay. Yes. All right. So let's see it. Okay. So we stop in this part, right? And punctuation count is, well, we're gonna talk about the semicolon, right? This mark wants the reader to pause a little longer than for a comma, but not as longer as a period. It could be called a soft period, right? And then we have to use this of it for sure. The first one is that we have to use a comma between independent clauses if they're not joined by a fanboys. Words like for, and, nar, but, or yet. So, for example, everyone in my family excels in baseball. I seem to be an exception, right? So we are using a semicolon, right? Then the second use, and why are we using this semicolon? Because we have two independent clauses, right? And they're not joined by a fanbase, right? So for that reason, we have the clause number one. Everyone in my family excels in baseball. Okay, one clause. The second one, I seem to be the exception, the second clause. As you've seen, there is now, we have two independent clauses, right? And then for that reason, we're using a semicolon. Then the second use of the semicolon, use the semicolon between independent clauses joined with words, for example, like for instance, otherwise, therefore, or however. Well, we have these phrases in order to introduce or to show a contrast, to show an addition, right? We have different, you can imagine how much words like this we have, how many words like this we have. And then if we're gonna use it, then we need to use a semicolon. I'm planning to go shopping tomorrow, semicolon. However, comma, I could wait if you want to go later, right? We have two clauses. I'm planning to go shopping tomorrow. I could wait if you want to go later. But then we're using, however, we're finishing at some point the first clause with a semicolon. Then we're using this word to join these two clauses, and then I'm continuing with the comma, right? So however, I could wait if you want to go later. Then we have an apostrophe. The apostrophe has several uses. So let's continue. If you have any question about this, just let me know, right? Let's continue. Okay, before to continue, we're gonna watch a video about the semicolon, the use of the semicolon, and then we're gonna continue with the apostrophe, right? Okay. Okay, so let me see it. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen with you. This is from Teeth, right? I really like this page. But this channel, I mean, well, they also have a page. Okay. So let's listen.
It may seem like the semicolon is struggling with an identity crisis. It looks like a comma crossed with a period. Maybe that's why we toss these punctuation marks around like grammatical confetti. We're confused about how to use them properly. In fact, it's the semicolon's half-half status that makes it useful. It's stronger than a comma and less final than a period. It fills the spaces in between, and for that reason, it has some specific and important tasks. For one, it can clarify ideas in a sentence that's already festooned with commas. Semicolons. At first, they may seem frightening. Then, they become enlightening. Finally, you'll find yourself falling for these delightful punctuation marks. Even though the commas separate different parts of the sentence, it's easy to lose track of what belongs where. But then the semicolon edges into the rescue. In list-like sentences, it can exert more force than commas do, cutting the sentences into compartments and grouping items that belong together. The semicolon breaks things up, but it also builds connections. Another of its tasks is to link together independent clauses. These are sentences that can stand on their own, but when connected by semicolons, look and sound better because they're related in some way. Semicolons were once a great mystery to me. I had no idea where to put them. Technically, there's nothing wrong with that. These two sentences can stand alone, but imagine they appeared in a long list of other sentences, all of the same length, each separated by periods. Things would get monotonous very fast. In that situation, semicolons bring fluidity and variation to writing by connecting related clauses. But as beneficial as they are, semicolons don't belong just anywhere. There are two main rules that govern their use. Firstly, unless they're being used in lists, semicolons should only connect clauses that are related in some way. You wouldn't use one here, for instance. Semicolons were once a great mystery to me. I'd really like a sandwich. Periods work best here because these are two totally different ideas. A semicolon's job is to reunite two independent clauses that will benefit from one another's company because they refer to the same thing. Secondly, you'll almost never find a semicolon willingly stationed before coordinating conjunctions. The words and, but, or, nor, or, so, and yet. That's a comma's place, in fact. But a semicolon can replace a conjunction to shorten a sentence or to give it some variety. Ultimately, this underappreciated punctuation mark can give writing clarity, force, and style, all encompassed in one tiny dot and squiggle that's just waiting to be put in the right place.
Okay, we're gonna watch it with subtitles, please.
It may seem like the semicolon is struggling with an identity crisis. It looks like a comma crossed with a period. Maybe that's why we toss these punctuation marks around like grammatical confetti. We're confused about how to use them properly. In fact, it's the semicolon's half-half status that makes it useful. It's stronger than a comma and less final than a period. It fills the spaces in between, and for that reason, it has some specific and important tasks. For one, it can clarify ideas in a sentence that's already festooned with commas. Semicolons. At first, they may seem frightening. Then, they become enlightening. Finally, you'll find yourself falling for these delightful punctuation marks. Even though the commas separate different parts of the sentence, it's easy to lose track of what belongs where. But then the semicolon edges into the rescue. In list-like sentences, it can exert more force than commas do, cutting sentences into compartments and grouping items that belong together. The semicolon breaks things up, but it also builds connections. Another of its tasks is to link together independent clauses. These are sentences that can stand on their own, but when connected by semicolons, look and sound better because they're related in some way. Semicolons were once a great mystery to me. I had no idea where to put them. Technically, there's nothing wrong with that. These two sentences can stand alone, but imagine they appeared in a long list of other sentences, all of the same thing, each separated by periods. Things would get monotonous very fast. In that situation, semicolons bring fluidity and variation to writing by connecting related clauses. But as beneficial as they are, semicolons don't belong just anywhere. There are two main rules that govern their use. Firstly, unless they're being used in lists, semicolons should only connect clauses that are related in some way. You wouldn't use one here, for instance. Semicolons were once a great mystery to me. I'd really like a sandwich. Periods work best here because these are two totally different ideas. A semicolon's job is to reunite two independent clauses that will benefit from one another's company because they refer to the same thing. Secondly, you'll almost never find a semicolon willingly stationed before coordinating conjunctions. The words and, but, or, nor, or, so, and yet. That's a comma's place, in fact. But a semicolon can replace a conjunction to shorten a sentence or to give it some variety. Ultimately, this underappreciated punctuation mark can give writing clarity, force, and style, all encompassed in one tiny dot and squiggle that's just waiting to be put in the right place.
Okay, so that will be everything about this video. And now we're going to continue. And maybe you're wondering what is the important part of everything, right? Well, when we're going to write essays, it's important to know, right? If we don't, give me a second. Okay, so we're gonna watch this video from TOEGAO. We're gonna watch it until the middle of the video, right? Because 7 minutes is too much. So let's pay attention, and we're gonna see what is the importance of spelling, punctuation, typography, and spelling in literature, right? So let's pay attention. Okay, something important is that this is shared with you by Wexford Country Council and eBay House Wexford. So let's listen.
This is also used as the audio version. So they're two very different experiences. And I was inspired to embark on my research after I spent 4 years as an undergraduate studying English. And when I reflected on everything I'd learned, everything we talked about, the plot, there's the theories that we use to analyze the literature, feminist theory, Marxist theory, post-colonial theory. We could have been talking about audio versions of books all the time. So that inspired me to start thinking about looking at the novel, not just reading. And I tried to integrate this into my approach to writing myself as well. So there was loads of books I could talk about and loads of books I wanted to talk about. For copyright reasons, unfortunately, we're going to have to use my own novel. This is Dublin 7. It's nothing to do with self-promotion. So Dublin 7 is set where I grew up. In the inner city. It doesn't have to be Dublin 7, it could be anywhere in Dublin. 7 actually refers to the 7 chapters, and each one of the chapters corresponds to one of Shakespeare's 7 ages of man, going from the infant, the schoolboy, to the lover, to the soldier, and so on. And these take place just in a year of this teenager's life. It's an accelerated journey through all those chapters because he gets involved in crime and drugs, that kind of thing. So one of the ways I represented this in the novel was by including little vignettes of kind of literary collage at the end of every chapter. So this is one from the 4th chapter, which is the soldier chapter. And you'll see there, it's a typical kind of excerpt from a newspaper article that you might see in the Sunday World talking about crime and gangland stuff in Dublin at the moment. And I represented it the way those articles are, with capitals for the heading, italics for the stand first, and so on. Now, when I met with a big international publisher to discuss publishing it, and they recommended I make a variety of changes to the text. And a lot of the recommendations they made were good, but some of them, one of them was to remove these little vignettes at the end of every chapter. And they said it kind of spoiled the illusion of reality, and I took the reader out of the book. But to me, that was a change that I couldn't make. I didn't try to publish it, so I went elsewhere and published for the independent Irish publisher. And the reason that I felt so strongly not to remove those things is because of how I feel about the novel, that it's a visual medium. And there's an increasing textuality to life. And what I mean by that is we're engaging with the written word more than we ever have in the history of humanity. We're texting, we're engaging in social media, and print is now ubiquitous and cheap. And so these items make up part of our everyday life. And more than television, more than video, more than radio, the novel is the perfect medium to represent those items. So it would be remiss not to include those when you have the opportunity to do so. So another thing I included in the book, and a variety of artists have done this, is text messages. So these are two texts passing between teenagers, romantic texts. And my editor, Sam, hello Sam, very kindly found a font called Nokia. So the book is set in 2004 when people had these little Nokia phones. And this is an exact replica of the font used. So I included the font to convey that kind of sense of what it was like communicating like that. And you'll see also there's spellings, so some misspellings, and a little emoticon there, and things like that to convey the way teenagers would have texted each other back then. So another thing, while we have this increased textuality of life, one of the things that I find a little bit depressing maybe is autocorrect. So autocorrect has kind of been ruining jokes, stopping us from coursing the way we want to. And who says shut the ducking door? So it's restraining how we write, and I remember back then we'd all kind of write the way we spoke. We all kind of, did those dialect spellings and stuff like that. And that's disappearing quickly because of autocorrect. So to talk a bit more about spelling, so one of my big inspirations is Roddy Doyle. He's an amazing author, and he represents the Dublin dialect, which is the way I speak it here. But I take issue to a certain extent with how Roddy Doyle represents the dialect. So he does this thing I call the apologetic apostrophe. So when he drops a G to represent people not pronouncing the G at the end of standard, he put an apostrophe in there to show that something missed. Now, I don't. Now, the reason I don't is because that apostrophe doesn't convey any information. There's nothing being communicated with that other than to say that the standard is the right way to do things and this is the wrong way. So, writers like Irving Welsh don't do it. Roddy Doyle does. Now, you might think this is just kind of pedantic and it's not too important, but I think a more egregious example of deferring to the standard is how he represents compound words. So the compound word is two words put together to form a new union. So, for example, you have flower pot. Now, a flower pot is a flower pot, but a hot dog is not a hot dog. So sometimes these units represent more than the sum of their parts. So that's the case with your man, which is a phrase in Dublin, and it means a specific person, a specific unnamed man. Now, Roddy Doyle represents as two separate words, your space man. And this is misleading. It's misleading, number one, about the pronunciation, but it's also misleading, number two, about the actual meaning. It's semantically misleading because your man doesn't mean your man. And Dublin people will say your man, and they mean it's like your boyfriend or things like that. So I think it should represent, people that are aiming to convey the way people in Dublin speak should represent it as it is. So what rests on the spelling? So there's a scene in my book, and where the young fella is remembering the sex education at school, and this is actually the sex education I got. It was from a priest at a retreat in 1990s Catholic Ireland, and the priest told us if you ever got an STD, that a metal speculum would be inserted into your urethra, and it would be scraped clean. So the line in the book says, when the boys hear this, their hands move involuntarily to cover their shriveling willies. So when I got the proofs back from my editor, my long-suffering editor, He had changed the spelling. So I had shriveling with 1 L, he changed it to 2 L, standard spelling. So I took great smooth pleasure in directing them to the Oxford English Dictionary, where shriveling or shriveling was a word from the 1600s. It's obsolete now, and it means it's a contemptuous term for someone with a spiritual direction. So without one letter, without one little letter, a whole host of meaning would have been lost without if we had it reverted to the standard. So the theme of this talk is imagining tomorrow, or tomorrow imagining. So Samuel Beckett said about Finnegan's Wake, son of Joyce, that Finnegan's Wake is not only to be read, it is to be looked at and listened to. And I think that's an approach that could benefit not only critics, not only academics, not only writers, but readers as well. Thanks very much.
Okay, so that will be everything about the video. As you've seen, it's very important, and more than that, it is going to help you in Spanish and English and every moment that you're going to record, right? Now that we know that, we're going to continue with the advance, and we're going to finish the PPT for today. And okay, now we have the apostrophe. Okay, so I just noticed that my microphone wasn't working. Now it is working. Okay, as I was explaining, we have 6 uses of the hyphen, right? We have some examples there: English speaking, next door, ice cold, life giving, broken hearted, and then. So we're gonna use the hyphen to divide a word between its syllables, right? Green-eyed, for example. Okay. And the second use is we're gonna use it for words containing double consonants, right? Should be divided. Correct, we have double consonant. Beginning, we have double consonant. So then we're gonna place it between the double consonants, right? What else? The next use, the third use of this hyphen is for words with a prefix or suffix should usually be divided between the prefix and root, or the root and suffix, right? For example, we have promote, peaceful, link, depend, double. So we have a prefix, pro, or maybe we could have a suffix, depend, and then we're gonna use the hyphen, right, to divide the prefix and the root, or the root, peaceful, link, okay? And then the fourth use of this is to divide a word that is already hyphenated only at the hyphen. For example, self-defense, happy-go-lucky, right? Self-defense, it's a self-love. We can also use the hyphen for self-love. And something that you have to take care is those words that when you're gonna, for those words that are already hyphenated, right? Only the hyphen, right? Self-defense, happy-go-lucky. We have three words that contains two hyphens, right? And the fifth use of this is to divide a word so that at least two its letters are carried to the next line. If you're gonna continue with the next line, then you need to use a hyphen, right? So we're gonna divide the word, right? From the letter, for example, life-giving, broken-hearted, ice cold, for example. And you don't have to use hyphen, a proper name of the per title, initials, or first name from the surname. That's the only exception, right? And then we're gonna continue with the parentheses, right? When do we have to use the parentheses? We're gonna use the parentheses to enclose matter, and this is something that we always know. That is added to a sentence, but it's not considered of major importance, but it's like a more more data maybe. I'm so sorry, I'm sick. Okay, so we're gonna enclose, right, some words, but are not considered major importance. But we want to give more examples or more data about the topic, right? For example, the pyramids loomed before. We want to enclose this part. It's not considered in major importance. I had only seen pictures of them until now. Okay, and we're gonna continue with this part. And rose majestically against the purple sky. My grandmother. This is like an extra information. She's very superstitious. Always ladders inside every Friday the 13th. It's not important information, but we want to give it. And then we're gonna continue with the quotation marks. This is something that I already explained in classes. The quotation marks are used mainly to show the reader that someone's exact words are being reproduced. Therefore, quotation marks comparing first, one at the beginning of the quote and one at the end. So we want to show to the reader that someone's exact words are being reproduced, right? We're gonna use this we have the Norma Zappa, right? We have when we want to citate to one author, we're gonna citate one phrases author, we're gonna use the quotation mark. For example, the first use of it is when to enclose a direct quotation, right? It means a person's exact words. Or you don't have to use quotation marks for an indirect question. This is part of the passive and active voice. A direct quotation begins with a capital letter, right? Brianna asked. I'm opening my quotation marks. Capital letter W, when do we get our assignments? I'm closing the quotation marks. The third point, other marks of punctuation used with quotation marks are placed according to this rule. For example, commas and periods are always placed inside the closing quote marks. For example, the concert tickets are sold out, Mary said. And I have to go, right? So we, in this case, we're again mentioning we're trying to show to our reader what is the citation, right? And colons and semicolons are placed outside the closing quotation marks. For example, Mrs. Johnson said, a stitch in time saved nice. Then we're using the semicolon because we have the word however, and we finished with the clause, with the independent clause. However, comma, I'll admit I never really understood what that saying means, okay? As you can see, we have several uses of the quotation marks, but all of them are to cite something that our author or one author said, okay? So we have to take care in that part, please, okay? So what else? Okay, we're going to continue with the parentheses. Well, the parentheses are to, but this is something that we already said, okay? So this is everything about the lesson. We were supposed to practice, but there is no way to do it. So I'm gonna try to show you another video maybe, right? So, okay. Okay, so again, you're gonna work on Google Docs, right? Before to continue, you're gonna choose whatever topic you want. I would prefer maybe a story, right? And then you have to apply everything that we've seen in the video, that we've seen in the lesson, okay? So we have, we're gonna watch this video. This is English punctuation, and we're gonna finish with it.
La capacidad de
Okay, so let's pay attention to it. Okay, press it. Okay, it's done. So let's do it. I'm gonna stop the video by part, right?
In this lesson, you can learn about English punctuation.
You'll see the most common punctuation marks in English, what they're called, and how to use them. This lesson has many sections. If you want, you can just watch the sections you need. Using punctuation correctly is critical for your English writing. Punctuation problems can make a bad impression or lead to misunderstandings.
If you need to improve your English writing, check out our website, oxfordonlineenglish.com. There are many free lessons to help you with your writing. Or you can take writing lessons with one of our professional teachers. But first, let's look at one of the most basic English punctuation marks.
A full stop is also called a period in American English. Use a full stop at the end of a full sentence. Don't put a space before the full stop, put one after. A full sentence could be short and simple, like this. I got there early.
A full sentence can also be longer and more complex, like this. Although my train arrived late, and I was sure I wouldn't make it on time, I actually got there slightly early. Be careful. The idea of a full sentence is not flexible. and it depends on the grammatical structure of the sentence. For example, can you see the mistakes in this sentence?
The first part, which ends with the word there, is a full sentence. You can't choose to put a comma and continue. You need a full stop or a semicolon, or you need to add a conjunction. Learning about sentence structure and how to make clauses into longer sentences is important if you want to use English punctuation correctly. Full stops are also used in some abbreviations when you make words short.
There are 3 kinds of abbreviation. 1, abbreviations which never have full stops, like BBC, CIA, or UN. 2, abbreviations which always use full stops, like e.g., IE, or etc. 3, wait, can you guess?
Some abbreviations are sometimes written with full stops and sometimes without. For example, Mr., Doctor, or AM and PM for talking about the time. Titles like Mr., Mrs., or Doctor are generally written without a full stop in British English and with one in American English. In British English, it's more common to write AM and PM in lowercase letters with full stops. In American English, it's more common to use capital letters and no full stops. However, both forms are commonly used, and you can choose which you prefer.
Commas have 3 main jobs. 2 of them are very simple. First, use a comma to separate items in a list, like this. Their house has 2 bedrooms, a large living room, 2 bathrooms, and a terrace. After each item in your list, put a comma. Use the word and between the last 2 items on your list. To make this, you'll need eggs, flour, and sugar. You can choose to put a comma before and or not. Both styles are possible.
You also need a comma with certain conjunctions, particularly and, but, so, and or. For example, you can ask her, but I don't think she'll agree. I won't be there till 10, so don't wait for me. The last way to use commas is also the most complicated. Use a comma, or often 2 commas in a pair, to add non-essential information to your sentence. What does non-essential mean?
It means that you could remove the information and the sentence would still make sense and have the same basic meaning. This is common when you use an adverb or linking phrase at the start of a sentence. For example, apparently, he's been suffering from depression for several years. It's also common when you add extra information in the middle of a sentence, like this. Yakutsk, which is in northern Siberia, has the coldest winters of any city in the world.
Hablar inglés es una de tus metas para este año. Te vamos a ayudar.
Oh, okay. What happened?
Turno de Open English.
Right.
Colons have one main job. They introduce examples, explanations, or details. Look at one example. Rapid urbanization has led to multiple problems: congestion, air pollution, and a shortage of affordable housing for families. Here, the sentence before the colon mentions a general idea, multiple problems, and the sentence after the colon explains what these problems are.
This is very common with colons. You mention something general before the colon, then you explain it in more detail after the colon. Let's see 2 more examples of this. I can promise you one thing: you won't regret your decision. He left all of his money to his best friend in the whole world. his cat.
Semicolons are most similar to a full stop. They're used at the end of a full sentence. So what's the difference? Using a semicolon shows that your ideas before and after the semicolon are connected. For example, he's so stubborn. It's impossible to convince him to change his ideas, even a little.
Here you have two sentences, but they're both talking about the same idea, him and his stubborn character. The semicolon emphasizes that the ideas are connected. You never need to use a semicolon, but they can be very useful. Using a semicolon is a very easy way to make connections between your ideas, which can help you to write clearly and efficiently.
When you use a semicolon, you don't need to use any conjunctions or linking phrases. For example, companies won't consider applications which look rushed. It's better to apply to fewer companies, but put more time into each application. However, there are some linking words which can be used with a semicolon, like however. I don't regret it. However, I would do things differently if I had another chance.
Okay,
Like,
so we're going to stop until this part, right? Because the video lasts 20 minutes, right? I'm gonna send you the link. Oh, but you already have the video, right? So yes, and please, we're on Thursday. I'm gonna see what are we gonna do for tomorrow, for Friday, because I some your practice or something like that. Because we finish with the first part, right? The next week we're gonna start with the different type of essays, right? So first of all, to start our lesson, we have to know how to use the punctuation. It's not difficult, Nicole. It's not difficult. So I'm gonna send you tomorrow morning because now it's a bit late, I guess. Maybe you're sleeping right now. So if you have any question, and then just let me know to my WhatsApp. Remember, we're gonna work in Google Docs. You're gonna write a story about 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs, using punctuations, all the punctuations that we've seen in the lesson, right? So that will be everything for today. Have a great day. I'm gonna see you.